and we're proud to bring you the Art of Leadership series with Dave Richards. Dave has been in the real estate mortgage business for over 22 years and in leadership for 20 of those years. From leading a billion-dollar area for a Fortune 100 company to small teams, he has had multiple positions in leadership. Currently, Dave is the Regional Vice President for OnQ Financial over Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. In 2015, Dave became a certified coach, speaker, and trainer for the John Maxwell team. In 2016, he was one of 200 coaches to go with John for the Transformación Paraguay, where they trained over 10,000 leaders in multiple streams of influence in a week. So today's presentation will be about 35 to 45 minutes. We encourage you to become an active participant in these webinars. Please use the chat box to respond to questions and share your thoughts with Dave and your fellow participants. As always, today's webinar will be recorded and available next week on our website at AAR Online. Welcome, and let's get started.
All right. Well, thank you, Beth, and thank you all. Gotta love technology. I am actually coming to you all from the beautiful state of Utah, where the weather is fantastic. It's low 90s, high 80s, and just a beautiful, surrounded by gorgeous mountains that are there. This is the first time I've done a webinar, and so it's interesting not being able to see you all, you being able to see me, and I'm not able to see myself. And so I'm sure we'll have lots of fun where you get an opportunity to laugh at me throughout the time frame, and hopefully we can laugh at each other a little bit too. So this is a great opportunity for us just to enter in a conversation. And so the opportunity for us to really bring forth this series of the Art of Leadership, and our very first one in 6 ways to increasing your influence. And so I'm excited to be able to have this opportunity with you all. As Beth mentioned, please use the chat box to ask any questions as we kind of go through some of the material. Want to make sure each of you have had a chance to pull down the document, or kind of the outline for today, and then also a notes page. And so I encourage on that notes page throughout our time together, I'm going to ask some questions to be able to kind of jot down your answers. And so at the end, or towards the end of our time together, we're going to open up the mic and open up the time to be able to have a little more of an interaction time frame. So the beginning, we'll focus in on kind of presenting and going through information-wise. And then at the end, I really want to hear from each of you and different things that you do in regards to our session today in the process. So, whoops, let's see here. Sorry, guys. As I mentioned, there it is. Perfect. Again, just asking rules of the road, be present, looking for us to be encouraging to one another. Certainly want to make sure that if you haven't already been a part of the Facebook page, please join, reach out to Beth, myself, or Barb, so we can get you added on there, because really what we want to do is create an ongoing conversation of leadership, increasing your influence. And so a great opportunity for us to bounce ideas, thoughts, what's working, etc., with each other, and really have just a great dialogue and a great conversation to continue. Today, just ask that you be present. We'll be mindful. I'll make sure that we keep precise to the time-wise, that we keep it under or at the 45-minute time. Certainly be open for any other conversation afterwards that we can talk through, but we'll make sure there. So be present. Gotta love those cell phones, those leashes that are there. And so if you don't mind, just try to unplug a little bit of your day and just kind of be with us. And so I think that we all get more when we can be present with the time that's there. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be going over again the six ways to increase your influence or leadership. And so I'm really encouraged and again excited to be able to talk through this with you. And so one of the quotes that some of you may have heard, though, from John Maxwell is, the hardest person you will ever have to lead is yourself. Darren Hardy talks about self-management being the key to unlock the highest of productivity that's there. And it's interesting when we talk and we look at that really ourself is the hardest person to lead. Part of that, I think, is that we tend to give ourselves a lot of grace. We tend to give ourselves and grade ourselves based upon our intentions rather than our results that are there. So I feel like I gave my best, or I really meant to say it this way, but it didn't come across that way. So again, I give myself a pass that's there. And so this is a time in which, in our first session, is the process. in which, again, it really is about leading ourselves. This is the bedrock. And so when we look at the law of process, this truly is the foundation and the bedrock of increasing your influence. If you can't lead yourself, you'll never be able to lead others. You'll never be able to influence others if you can't lead yourself, if you can't, again, manage your activities, manage your time, manage your thoughts, and again, what and how you think through things. You know, Plato says the greater part of instruction is being reminded of the things you already know. And I wanted to start with that because in the law of process, this is not going to be any rocket science. It's not a purple pill. It's not some kind of a quick, easy fix that I'm going to give you, you know, just kind of a plug-in to go through to be able to increase your influence. Instead, again, that bedrock, that foundation of the process, this is the grind, right? This is not anything sexy. It's not anything fun to talk about. It's not going to all of a sudden plug these 2 or 3 things and get more out of life or sell more or whatever it may be that you're trying to dictate and cross though. But instead, these are going to be, again, things that and principles that you already know inherently. So what I challenge you to do is to think about it differently today. Take a step back and rather than the cognitive way of nodding and agreeing and saying, yep, I get it. I get the grind. I get what I got to do. I understand these principles. I understand it. But instead, I want you to look through the lens and the perspective of, am I living this out? The question being, if Dave was to spend the next 24 to 72 hours with me, what would he learn? Would I be living out the law of process or would I not? Do I look for the quick fix? Do I look for the quick way to resolve or take care of things, or do I do the right way or the right thing? And so I just challenge you to look at it through that perspective, and then and to see if you can glimmer or grab some additional nuggets and some additional things that you can really look at, because I think that that's really the proof and really how you'll see the power of the process unleash in your own life that's there. You know, process is defined a number of actions, and I would even say intentional actions or functions done in order to produce a desired result. You know, process takes patience, it takes persistence, and it takes intentionality. Again, not fun words, discipline. Words like that are not really fun when we talk about or think about how we can increase our influence or increase our leadership. Yet again, they are truly that bedrock for building the influence and the impact that you're looking to do. And so as we go through and we build in on our first point though, is that leadership or your influence develops daily, not in a day. You know, leadership and influence is really a lot like investing, and it leverages something that's called the compound effect. Some of you may have heard the story about Ann Shiver. She retired from the IRS on a modest $3,100 a year salary in 1943. At that time, she had $5,000 to her name, in which she invested in a series or a few different stocks that are there. And over the course of the next 52 years, she lived a modest life. She was pretty, frugal in the way that she lived with furniture and clothing, et cetera, that's there. In addition to that, she took all of the dividends from those stocks and continued to reinvest it in additional stocks to grow that there. And you know, Ann became an overnight legend to the Yeshiva University when she died in 1995, and she gave her entire estate of $22 million, all starting from a $5,000 investment and growing daily into a $22 million. Now, I jokingly said a overnight success because we know it took 52 years to grow that estate to be able to give to Yeshiva. And yet, I think a lot of times, again, as we talk about our influence and our growth as a leader, though, that we expect to get that $22 million investment immediately. Let's just find the right stock. Can I pick the right stock? And in 5 years, I can be this great and make this high impact and huge legacy. Or, you know, whatever purple pill or fad of the day, et cetera, we're going to look for ways to speed that. And yet Ann shows how to become right? That high impact in our life. And I think leadership is the same way. Again, it develops daily, not in a day. It's like investing, definitely something that you want to continue to allow it to compound. Now, question for you to write down. What are some of your daily routines? What are things that you're doing to build yourself into a great leader or to increase your influence today? What are you doing every day? What are some things that you do? Just encourage you to write that down. And again, towards the end, we'll talk a little bit more about that. You know, again, part of the whole point of growing and looking at this day in and day out, I'm reminded of a great story in the Bible of Joseph. And some of you may know the story, but it really embodies the whole process-oriented, you know, how the process goes. And Joseph was a beloved son. His brothers got jealous based upon him sharing a dream in which he was going to rule over, or they were going to actually serve him. And so those brothers threw or sold him into slavery, in which he was purchased by a very wealthy man in Egypt. He rose in his influence in this man's house to rule over everything for him and take care of everything, to then a point that happened in which his integrity was challenged and he didn't compromise, in which he was then thrown into jail, spent years in jail, again, focused in on growth and going with things. He provided value to some servants of the Egyptian king, and over time became and rose to power. The Egyptian king brought him to be the number 2 in power, where in turn he did help his family out. But you look at that entire series of events or life that's there, and how committed would you be during that time? There's some difficult times in his life in which he stayed focused in on his growth or where things were headed. And again, to the point though that he was able to rise and really make a significant impact that candidly saved his family's life within it and how he was used there. So again, I think that when we look at the story of Anne, we look at the story of Joseph, it really brings forth that visual or that thought again about how leadership develops in a day, how we grow daily, and how we should leverage again the impact of the compound effect. You know, when we look at and do an assessment or grow within within leadership though, and our influence. And so you'll hear I interchange leadership and influence because I believe that leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. It's not about a title. It's not about anything like that. It's not, again, being a manager or growing or leading a group of people. It really is about leadership, about influence. And so when you look at that influence, a lot of people will initially say, well, I don't manage anybody. I don't have anybody that I work with or grow. And instead, those individuals, when you look back, it is said that actually every one of us look to influence 4 people minimum every single day. So when you look at that, in growing your influence or growing your ability to lead, it will help you in all facets of your life, not just, of course, if you manage a team or grow in that way, it's going to grow in other parts. And so with that growth, and with that part of we look at the 5 phases of leadership. And so we're going to start with the first one, is that I don't know what I don't know. I started with that comment about, again, knowing why leadership or influence can benefit each person. But this also goes, I believe, to a next level. Some of you may have never or have been focused in on and maybe read books or do different things that you've been able to grow in your influence and leadership. That's there, but you may not even know about it, or you don't have an ability to even have a true assessment. One of the things that this reminds me of is our Fitbit fad and phenom that's going on. And I don't know how many of each of you guys have a Fitbit or a smartwatch or some type of an electronic device that assesses your daily progress in something, whether it's be steps made, calorie burn, whatever it may be. There's this great phenom that's out there that a lot of people have, again, subscribed to on it. Well, why does that work, right? Why does it work? Why does the Fitbit work? Because it gives progress reports. It gives a strong assessment of where you're at throughout the day. So if you're at 9,000 steps, as I talked to my mother-in-law, where we got her a Fitbit, and she's looking to improve her heart and her health there. We got her a Fitbit that's there. She knows that at 5 o'clock, if she's got 9,000 steps, she knows, hey, let me go walk around the block a little bit to make sure I hit my 10,000 step progress or goal that's there. Leadership and influence is really the same thing. There's a lot of tools that are out there that can give you an assessment of where you're at in your leadership. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. And again, if you use any of those, I just encourage you to write those down so that we can interact and share that later on that's there too. So the next phase of leadership is, I know I need to know. British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli said, to be conscious that you are ignorant of the facts is a great step towards knowledge. And so again, as you open up your conscious, as you open up your knowledge or knowing of where you are in your leadership and in your influence, it gives you the blueprint to structure out and outline where you want to grow. Where are areas that you want to flex your strengths? Where are areas that maybe you need to work on to mitigate maybe some challenges that are there that may be or derailers of your career or your mission that's there. And so it's important to have that strong assessment and then to use that to then determine and outline a specific plan that's available that's there. So again, a great opportunity to focus in on that part of it. The third phase of leadership is I know what I don't know. And so again, it's not an overnight success or an overnight magic that's there. This is again, what I'm reminded of a story. Oh, thank you, Beth, about the handouts that are there. This again, it's not about the overnight. I'm reminded of a story that John Maxwell has shared though, in which he took over his very first leadership position. And during that time frame, he was challenged on whether he had a plan for his own personal growth. And part of the ideas that he had was he wrote letters to the top 10 leaders in his field. And he asked and offered up $100 to give him 30 minutes of their time. And he outlined structured questions, et cetera, that's there. But that's a commitment to personal growth. That is focused in on learning what I don't know and putting it into practice to create, again, that opportunity for me to grow and to lead within what I'm looking to do. Again, the fourth phase of leadership is to know and to grow. It starts to show, right? As you continue to build. So as we go back to the story of Anne, as she grew her investment and continued to reinvest it, there were points in her life over that 52 years where she started to see it multiply. And in fact, it probably encouraged her even more to continue to invest, continue to reinvest, and take a look and go with that. Again, that's part of that assessment aspect, is seeing your progress as you grow in your influence, as you grow in your leadership. And so again, it starts to manifest. It starts to, again, bloom in your life in the way that you interact with others, and you see that. And many of you are already at this step. You're more in that level 4, that phase 4 of leadership, as you've stepped into different impactful positions within the board of realtors or your respective boards or the state, that you've now stepped in and you're linked in and you've been recognized again for the fruits of your labor, for the blooming of leadership qualities that have been in your life. And so it's starting to show that's there. And this is a time in which, rather than just kind of riding out with your laurels, it's a time to lean in, to grow more, to see how can I grow from those of last year or the year before? How do I take in more time to spend with them? How do I surround myself with those that challenge me, that move me forward? And so again, there's an opportunity to really focus in on and growing there. And then again, the last of the fifth phase is you simply go because of what you know. So as you continue to build that growth or build that skill set of leadership and influence, it'll be on automatic. It'll go there. You know, I'm reminded Joe Frazier shares that champions are not found, or they're merely not they're not recognized in the ring. They're instead, or excuse me, that they're not made in the ring, that they're merely recognized. And it's the hard work, right, that you put in that then gets recognized when you're on stage or you're stepping into a leadership position, or whatever it may be that is your next step that's there that you're able to shine, right? It's that hard work that you put in, it's the effort, it's the growth and those things that then will shine and show out when that time is there. So the third part, and Beth, I'm going to ask you to open up right now because I really want to encourage our time to talk and listen through here. Hopefully you've written some certain things. I've got some additional questions and things to share with you. But I want to encourage a dialogue here. Again, as I gave you that perspective and the lens to look at how you're living out the process. And I want to hear from each of you because I know that many of you have fantastic routines or processes, things that you have in place daily that feed into yourself. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to really share with that. So the first thing I would like to ask though is, again, do you have a plan for growth, right? And what is that plan? What types of seminars, coaching events, or other things do you do in your life to focus in on growth? So what are those daily routines? As people are kind of gathering their notes, hopefully you've got some ideas. Beth, I'm not sure if we've got it off mute right now, but hopefully we can. You know, one person that really comes to mind that's been influential in my life is Tim Ferriss. I don't know if any of you guys have read any of his books. He's written The 4-Hour Workweek. Recently, he wrote just a novel, a huge book of Tools for Titans. But what a great, he's one that actually, when I read through, the discipline in which he attacks the day is phenomenal. He's got some quirky things that I think are fun that I've been able to leverage, that I've seen great impact for me personally, like fasting or different, again, reading programs or other parts that are there. But again, Tim Ferriss comes to mind for me in regards to having a strong discipline or routine that's there. One of the things that I love that Tim shares is when you wake up, you need to have a win in that first wake up. And so it's making your bed every single day gives you, again, a sense of pride when you're able to accomplish that very first task that's there. Does anybody have any routines that they do or things that they do in their life daily? Okay. Hopefully I can spur on some thoughts that are there. I think for me, and I've shared this at the LTA event, you know, I leverage my Outlook calendar. I leverage little comments or phrases that are inspiring to me that really kind of embody something that I'm looking to go into. Oh, they're coming into the question box. I was looking at the chat box. All right, Diana and Yuma. Don't know the chat box. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. So reading inspirational quotes. Mary, thank you. Absolutely. That actually goes right into play with what I was sharing. So, you know, keeping your mind focused in on positive or gratitude or inspirational quotes that you can kind of kick the day off is huge, right? And a huge opportunity that's there. I often take some of those quotes that are more meaningful and I keep them in my calendar where every morning I've got a couple of them that pop up around 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. and just remind me how to attack the day. So thank you, Mary. That's fantastic. So we've got Diana who's saying up early to review the to-do list and update it, act on items. Fantastic. You know, eating the frog, as Mark Twain would share, is a huge deal. Assessing what you've got for the day and accomplishing, going after some of those harder tasks even in the beginning really makes the rest of that day go downhill. And so that also, I think, feeds into being able to have some specific time in regards to investing in yourself. Because if I can accomplish those things, right, and I can knock out those high activity points then early, then it gives me more time throughout the day. So that's great. Eric Gibbs, it's Tim Ferriss, Ferris. And so his last book is Tools for Titan. One of the things that I love about that book is that it's written in sections of like 1 to 3 pages. And really all it is his interviews of entrepreneurs and billionaires across the world. And again, gathering their routines and what they do that they would, share that has helped them be successful in their life that's there. So thank you, Diana, for pointing out that I couldn't see you guys' questions pieces that are there. And Beth, are we able to unmute folks that are there?
Absolutely. If you'd like to speak and we want to go that route, just raise your hand. There should be an icon to click to raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
Perfect. Evan says, I have a personal mission statement that I read every morning and other times throughout the day. Fantastic of bringing focus, Evan, right? So making sure that you bring in what you're looking to accomplish and having a clear direction of that. And again, each and every day, rather than getting lost in the monotony of the day or all of the different things that are going on, maybe fires or whatever, but staying focused in on that mission, I think is fantastic. What a great comment and point in having that top of mind. Lots and lots of notes. Journal. Podcast. I love it. Tim Ferriss has a fantastic podcast. And there's many other podcasts that are there too. So surround yourself with people. Thank you, Becca. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Let me move over here again. This is an example of a leadership growth plan that I sent out. It should be a part of the attachment. Gives you an opportunity to kind of read through it. There's some examples on how you can modify this. Really just something that, again, just kind of was out there that you can use. And again, I think that leadership, your leadership or your growth plans have to be personal, but they have to be intentional. So again, it's planting things in your life or planting things around you that, again, keep you focused and on it. One of the things, and I hope that we can actually get some conversation about this though, is what are you reading, right? So again, part of your growth plan is you should be reading. They say that the top CEOs in the country read between 50 and 60 books a year. I don't know about you, but that is a lot of books for me. I have a personal goal of 30 books a year. Currently, I'm a little behind for my 2017. I've got 14, but I am in the process of finishing 2 more. But again, I think putting a goal out there, so whatever it may be, and what books that you've got. One of the things before I ask or before I get some suggestions on books that you all are reading, though, I would share is that in the reading, I think it's also important to change the way that you consume the book. And what I mean by that is that I often find myself consuming a book through audio differently than if it's in writing. And so I'll listen to a lot of books basically on podcast or on my phone while I'm driving. That's there, and I'll listen to books there. Sometimes there's a really powerful or impactful book, and I'll buy it in its written format and read it separately, because again, your brain processes it differently when you read it in writing and when you actually listen to it also. So can somebody kind of share what books they may be reading right now or have read? While you're thinking about that, hopefully you can, Beth, let me know when somebody raises their hand. I'll start with a couple of mine that's there. I've got some staples that I read every single year. And the 3 books that come to mind there is, number 1 is 25 Ways to Win with People. And so this is a book that I read every single year that's there. And I love this book. Why? Because it's very simple, very easy to implement in your life. And it's great reminders of things in just terms of, again, how to, again, make, interact with people and grow, and again, make a high impact though. So 25 Ways to Win with People. It's by Maxwell and Parrott, Les Parrott. Great book, one that I read every single year that's there. 21 Laws, Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. That's a book that I work in every year, so I call that a staple. I work within it all the time when I do different coaching pieces and things like that. And then another third book that I love is my favorite U.S. president is Abraham Lincoln. And so Lincoln on Leadership is another book that I love reading, and I read it every single year, and a great read that I enjoy. So anybody have any books that they'd like to share with the group? Oh, I see a hand.
Go ahead, Brad.
Yes. Is that Brad?
Yes.
All right,
His
Brad.
mic is open.
Brad, are you on?
He does not have a mic, so he's not able to speak.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, if you want to type that in, then I can read it out loud. Eric's actually shared a couple in the questions field, and I apologize. When I'm on the PowerPoint, it doesn't allow me to see your questions or your comments coming in at the same time. So Eric has shared that she's got Fierce Conversations is a book that's there. Looks like Becca's got Utility. Let's see here. Eric also Start With Why by Simon, fantastic book. Lee Brown, Outrageous Authenticity, fantastic. I didn't get my autograph this past deal. Wish. Relentless, Brad. I took actually that from you, and actually I just finished that a little bit earlier. Great book there. So thank you for sharing that with me earlier too. So, well, there it is. No mic. All right. Yep. Relentless, From Good to Great to Unstoppable. Anybody else have any other books that they read that they could suggest to the group? Recently, I've been on a bit of a military kick. I love the SEAL piece. And so a few books that actually are on about SEALs, though, is The Way of the SEAL. It's a leadership book that I really enjoyed. I like this Jocko. He also has a podcast. I believe Evan brought up the Tim Ferriss podcast. Jocko also has a podcast also in regards to leadership and folding it into a military aspect. But he wrote a book called Extreme Ownership that I think is a fantastic read that's there. Love Living with a SEAL, kind of a funny book, but it definitely shares about discipline and daily routines that are there. So those are three books that recently kind of been on that. I like David and Goliath or Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell are some books that have actually been good. And Angela Duckworth wrote a book on grit. And so for those of you that may be looking to hire or grow your teams out, I encourage you to get that book and read it because it really talks about, again, identifying and finding people with grit. And I think our industry definitely takes people that have grit to stick through that's there. So, and then recently also Vaynerchuk. I don't know if any of you guys have read any of his stuff, but Gary Vaynerchuk, a huge media guy. He's also recently read his book, Thank You Economy. Great read. I think that's been good. And currently what I'm reading is The Leading Brain and Leadership Handbook. Leadership Handbook is really just small excerpts every day. But again, The Leading Brain is the book that I'm reading right now that I'm in the middle of. So any other? Oh, Coaching Habit. Great. Thank you, Evan. Another book that I was just suggested, I wrote down, and I love, Evan, when you shared earlier, though, that you take notes all the time. And I think that's such a true thing and something we all should subscribe to in doing, and we'll go into that in the next part, though. But, I was meeting with a top agent, the #1 agent here in the state of Utah yesterday, and he shared with me, again, we were talking about growing and recruiting teams, and he's in the midst of reading a book called Hiring A Players. And so I wrote that down as definitely a book that I'm going to look at getting to make sure it's on my list. And so I usually try to carry 2 to 3 to 5 books that are on my wish list that are kind of out there going, so that I've always got something that I can get into. So perfect. All right, let's move to this. All right, so the next part of it, plan and reflect daily. And really this is about what Evan's talking about, is do you take time every day to assess the day? How did it go? Who did I talk to? How did those conversations go? Did I stay on purpose or on mission with what my personal mission is? You know, how did I interact? What could I have done or said earlier? What are some ways that each of you look to plan and reflect daily? You know, I think about, you know, everybody says experience is the best teacher, but really it's evaluated experience is the best teacher. So it's important to make sure that you take into account that it's all about reflecting upon, not just experiencing through things. How did that go? How could I have done better within it? You know, one of the things, and I'll move over because I think that one of the best ways that we can plan and we can reflect on the day is journaling. You know, Evan talked about taking notes. Is there anybody on the call or on the call here? Do you journal at all? Anybody use a journal? There we go, Evan. Yep. In the morning, Brad. Great. Fantastic. I have to full confession, I wish that this was a quality or a discipline that I've got. It's one that is on my list to get into, and I will make this a practice. But journaling for me, I think because maybe I just think too much about it though, but I really wish that I journaled because I think it's important to do that. One thing that I found that I think will help me, so for those of you that are not good journalers like myself and just can't kind of get into that mindset, was the 5-minute journal. And so I purchased that. And it's ready for me to take on. But basically the premise of the 5-minute journal basically gives you bulleted questions about the day to answer. So rather than just kind of going on in terms of what the day is and being able to kind of write in that manner, which is more difficult for me to do, instead I'm answering direct questions. And so it gives me an inspirational quote like Mary mentioned. It gives an inspirational quote in the beginning for each day, and then again kind of builds on different questions that are there. Speaking of journaling, one of the things that I wanted to also talk about in regards to reading your books and consuming things differently, I don't know about you, but whenever I read a book, I try to rip it up in terms of underline, highlight, write in the margins, etc. And I think that for me, that's a great way for me to really process through the content and really think through, like, how is it landing? The thing about that I would encourage that if you don't do that, I'd encourage you to do that. I know that, you know, you may feel like it's destroying property. Certainly, I wouldn't advocate that if you've checked them out from your public library, but those books that you own, I think it's a great way to, again, record or have an account of where your mind was when you were reading. So when you go back into a book and you skim through, you can kind of read through again what those thoughts were. What did you think about when you were reading? How did it land? And whether it changed, whether it went. To digress slightly though, I was at a funeral of a good friend down in the Valley recently, and the most impactful thing that I came away in hearing and going and seeing on was the legacy or what he gave to his children by having multiple books, specifically a Bible and other books though, in which he underlined, he wrote prayers, he wrote just his thoughts all throughout the margins. And you think about what that's going to give to his family from now on, or, you know, for ongoing though, in which they can really see what he was thinking and read and understand that. And so I just encourage you that if you don't already do that, definitely look at that though. The Journal King, Evan is the Journal King. Oh, you're not kidding about that, Diana, for sure. Want to start again, Mary, maybe looking at that 5-minute journal. It's in Amazon.com. If you're like me and have a hard time just starting, where do I start? What do I write about? What do I say? Again, gives you bulleted questions that are there. Again, Eric, same type thing. I mean, that's exactly where my mind's at, right? Where do I start? What do I write within it? So text to speak. There we go. Alexa, right, Brad? Leveraging Alexa and things. So perfect. Anybody else have any other habits or ways in which they are able to record or journal? I love the electronic leveraging technology and just, speaking, talk texting could be something you even do on your way home, right? And just kind of push the button and start talking. So, and let it kind of record through it. So that's a great deal. Obviously keep your eyes on the road, but a great way that you can leverage it that way too. So anything else? All right. And this really is more of an open type thing. So it's not just about, again, maybe routines or could be obviously, ways that you plan or reflect in the day, but really also, what are the other things that you do? What are you looking to commit? So we've got some great ideas from each of you that you leverage or use, some books. So hopefully you came away with some books that should be on your wish list to be able to read. But what are some other ways? What are some other things that you look to do to grow yourself in your influence or just have personal development and personal growth, which I believe feeds into your ability to influence others that's there? Pocket journal, there we go. Having it on hand, I think, Evan, is a big deal, right? I think that probably goes along with Brad's point of having a text to speak or to speech that's there, but having it with you and being able to get to it fast, I think is a big deal. So to help you kind of execute and get that done. Evernote, great, love it. What are some other things? Anybody subscribe to or go into affirmations? Fantastic, Mary. I think that goes along with Evan, what he shared earlier in terms of, again, keeping him focused in on what he wants to do, where he's looking at. I think some of you heard before, though, but I have a daily reminder that pops up every morning that says, walk in a manner worthy of your calling. And that to me is an affirmation, right? That to me is, walk in a manner, again, that you're called to. And so in an upright way. So I think that's a great way to keep focused in on where you're looking to do. Meet with other leaders in the industry. Absolutely. Different seminars, different conferences that are there. AAR puts on a fantastic spring convention every year, right? What a great opportunity to hear incredible speakers, incredible leaders within our industry and gather those best practices, keep up on current events, what's going on, and be educated that's there. And really, my favorite part of all of those type of conferences is just rubbing elbows with you all, with others, right? And learning what's going on in their life and what's happening, and again, what they're working on or where they're growing. And I think we can learn so much from each other. So I love that. Love that, Diana. Any other seminars or other conferences specifically that you like to go into, or other ways in which you look to grow in the process? Okay. Well, I think there's a lot, right? There's a whole lot that's there. I think hopefully even after the call, you can kind of, again, continue to write down, because I think that part of it is recognition in either A, am I doing enough to get to where I want to go? So are there things that I need to add? Are there things that I need to grow? There may be things that you need to stop doing, that you need to do more of. But what is it that I'm doing so that I can create an intentional growth plan? I wrote down a few things that the top Fortune 500 leaders do every day. Some of them stood out to me, and I'll share with those two that you can take a look at in terms of some specific things. So it's not necessarily what you're necessarily like learning or reading or consuming in that. But for instance, the average leader wakes up at 6:15 in the morning. So the question, what time do you wake up? You've got obviously the overachiever Tim Cook in Apple that wakes up at 4:30. Do you fall on that? Do you fall in at 6, or are you kind of depends on the day that you're sleeping in that's there. So again, that's there. Morning exercise. Richard Branson says that his morning exercise routine, he believes, brings 4 additional hours of productive time into every single day that he has. 70% of these top leaders, though, eat breakfast. Interesting. Podcast, it was already shared before. Taking time, I think that I can't remember whether it was Mary or Diana that shared, again, kind of tackling the day, strategizing for the day, taking time to, again, plan or strategize for the day. That's there. And then again, the average leader spends at least an hour a day in some type of a personal enrichment or development program of some sort. So you look at that, that's a big deal. There you go, 5 a.m. You and Apple, Eric. Good stuff. Perfect. All right. So with that, I'm going to pause here. Is there any additional questions or thoughts that you all want to share? Any questions that you may have as we close our time together here? All right, I don't see anything popping up. I would love your feedback. And so obviously technology piece, I'm getting a little used to this. I'd love to get your feedback in regards to, how this went, how we can better interact and go through. And so I'm not sure whether some of you are just on cell phone wise and not having a mic or whatever, but maybe we can talk through, how to best do that or leverage the questions, and I'll learn better on how to balance the both that's there. But I definitely want your feedback in growing and making sure that this is something of value, that you see time and that you see, benefit in investing this 45 minutes, since we're right there at that time frame that's there. Now, Thursday is our next webinar. We're going to move into really, I believe, a heart thing. And that is, again, how do you value others and how do you grow? And I believe valuing others and really coming from that stance increases your leadership by leaps and bounds. And so I'm encouraged and excited to see and speak to you guys and have dialogue around valuing others on Thursday, same time, 11:30. That's there. I'll start posting some things. Again, a reminder, if you're not already connected to the Facebook page, please make sure you do that. It's a great way for us to encourage each other and interact in between the time frames. And we really want to make sure, again, that we drive a dialogue that's here and really look at, again, how we can provide value. And so I look forward to talking to you all this Thursday. And for now, hope you have a great rest of the day. Talk to you later.